Today I want to dive into another analog horror series here on the channel. I've been having a lot of fun explaining these and going over their lore recently, but today I want to talk about the one known as the Obelisk. And good golly, this one is awesome. There are strange beings, there's unknown effects, and childhood trauma is a factor at play here. This series is shot in kind of a point-and-click style, and I think it's seriously amazing. If you want to stick around for my explanation and description of it, I'd really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy. If you want more analog horror series explained like this one, please leave a like, that way YouTube knows, and that way I know to keep doing them. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get to the video, and let's talk about the Obelisk, shall we? Now, for the sake of making this video easy to understand and easily searchable, I'm going to be splitting it up into 3 distinct parts. The first part will be an overview of the series, breaking down each of the 5 episodes in the Obelisk. The second part will be where I talk about the theories that I have and others have about the entire series, what we think the story is going to lead to, what we think the characters at play are, that sort of thing. And the third and final part of the video will be my final thoughts, kind of wrapping it up and tying a neat little bow on top of this terrifying, awesome series. Alright, let's do it. As of this video that you are currently watching, there are a total of 5 parts to the Obelisk series, and the first episode was uploaded over a year ago by the creator of the series known as Lizard Menink, or Lizard Menink. The bio of this channel actually kind of reminds me of the Kane Pixels bio, because it just says, "Hello, I'm a 20-year-old VFX artist." But the initial video on Lizard's channel is actually a skibbity toilet animation, but moving past that, we have the Obelisk episode 1, titled My New Friend. This video is a recording of someone showing off their quote-unquote new friend, which by the looks of it is some sort of demonic entity hiding in their closet. The camera barely catches a glimpse of the figure before it ducks back into the shadows and away from our sight. The cameraman then explains that this behavior is unique, and they say that the thing doesn't like being watched. After inspecting the inside of the closet, you can see that the entity has vanished and it's nowhere to be found, even though there's no way out of the closet, it somehow disappeared. A jump cut in the footage shows the cameraman watching TV, probably in the next room or downstairs or something, and they're watching some sort of Looney Tunes style old cartoon. Right as the TV cuts off and shows the end screen of the cartoon, the entity itself from earlier seems to be walking around somewhere upstairs inside the house. Doing what every normal person would do, the cameraman gets up and walks towards the pitch black darkness and searches for the creature. I'm just kidding, no one would do that, this person is insane. At this point, a sort of audio distortion starts to reverberate through the microphone, and whatever the being is close. You can kind of see it in the shadows. The camera then cuts again to reveal that the cameraman is back in his room, with the being staring directly at him from the closet. This time the door's not closed, it's just open, it's just sitting there staring. And that is it for part 1. Right off the bat, from the very first episode of this series, we get the tone and the energy that the entire thing is going to be about. It's liminal, it's uncanny, there's less textures than you'd expect, and everything seems to be empty and barren. There's no windows to speak of, no natural light, hardly any lights at all, and everything is so eerily quiet besides the noises of the scuffling that the creature made and the cartoon that was on. In fact, this entire first episode and the rest of the series, it has a real backroomsy vibe, kind of found footage style format, except it's more of a point and click style rather than just a straight up found footage. One thing I do want to point out before we go to the next part is that the cameraman does not seem to be afraid of this terrifying creature staring at them directly from their closet. This can mean one of 2 things. One, the cameraman could be a child or a kid of some sort, and they kind of have that naivety, that childhood innocence, to not really know what they're facing against. This point is further enforced by the fact that there's toys, like kids' toys, on their bedroom floor. So maybe this thing is trying to befriend the cameraman who is a child. I don't know. Another thing I want to point out is that it's probably likely that these creatures can kind of teleport or make their own doorways or tunnels wherever they want to, because the thing was in the closet, but when you opened the closet up, there was nothing in there. It had to get out somehow, and it obviously wasn't through the door. So maybe they can make their own wormholes. The next episode is titled, You're Almost Gone. And this one opens up with a camera on the ground aiming at a door towards the end of a hallway. The hallway itself, again, is dark and dingy. There's no windows in sights, and it's just so liminal space-esque. There are these feelings of emptiness and these feelings of loneliness that you get from being this camera. And speaking of being, some creature opens the door. The face of the creature is blocked out, but it bends down on all fours right as the camera cuts to another unsettling camera view. This view shows perhaps that same hallway from a different different angle in the middle of the woods. Maybe it's a doorway that one of the creatures opened to get to that hallway, and they did so from the wilderness. Then we see a little montage of screenshots that kind of show this giant lanky creature, siren head looking thing, walking around the woods. Then the camera cuts back, and in the last few seconds of this video, we see a door on the left side of the hallway slowly move, indicating that whatever came through that doorway originally, it went through the other doorway too. Now, to me, this specific episode confirms my theory that whatever these creatures are, whatever these beings are, they have the ability to open up doorways, wormholes, whatever you want to call them, to different houses, and specifically this house. And as you can see from the camera footage, that hallway ended in the woods. So it looked like it kind of got teleported there, like a wormhole or something. So maybe the creature's powers kind of do that. Maybe they have this temporal ability to transmit themselves and transmit other things to doorways and through doorways. I want to point out, at this point in the series, we have not seen anyone being threatened or eaten or maimed by this creature yet. In fact, the things we've seen and the activity we've seen from the creature, it seems more curious, more interested in what we're doing as the cameraman than eating us or attacking. The next installment of the series is called In Your Home. This video starts with a view of a terrifying liminal looking room showing no windows and a door that's been barricaded shut with a chair shoved up against it. Outside of that door, you can hear a strange whining noise from across the house, and that's when texts pop up that say, "Check on Abby," which is a baby in this series. And I just want to say that this guy, this cameraman, whoever this is, they locked their kid, Abby, outside of their room into a different part of the house, knowing that this weird looking entity is lurking and kind of messing with the cameraman and getting inside the house. So they did that willingly, putting their daughter in danger. I just want you to know that. Not really a good parenting move, but I digress. The cameraman then exits his bedroom and walks down a hallway that is completely empty. There's nothing on the walls, no decorations, no windows, nothing. And the hallway itself only leads to Abby's room. Once that door opens, it's visible that Abby is not in her little bed, probably because the person holding the camera left her outside with this thing. Right after checking around the bedroom, from the darkness of a closet, you can see this weird jester-looking entity and a hand reach out. At first, it doesn't move. It sort of curiously acknowledges the cameraman's presence. And then, in a strange twist, it doesn't jump scare the person. It slowly lunges at the camera to reveal itself as the music and ambience rises. Whatever this is, it looks massive, and it has a white, long face with a jester headdress on, and that somehow kind of makes it even scarier than the typical analog horror jump scare. The last few seconds show this creature once again staring from the shadow with the cryptic text that pops up on the screen that says the doors were locked. That text saying the doors were locked, that again enforces the fact that I think this thing can wormhole itself through different hallways or corridors or open doorways wherever it pleases, because if the doors were locked, how'd it get in? But also in this specific episode, we see another few things that are of note. First of all, we see the initial window. The only window we've seen in the series is inside of Abby's room. In previous videos and previous footages, we literally have not seen a window. Everything's barren. And also we see this creature, whatever it is, this is the first human attack that it does by attacking and taking Abby somewhere, or killing her. Before this, it kind of just seemed curious, but now it's malevolent. And also, this is the first episode where we see a new type of creature. The initial types look different. They didn't have the jester mask on or the white face. This one looks specifically new, yet it's still inside the same universe. More on that later. This leads us to the second to last installment of the series, titled The House with No Windows. This video begins with a cameraman locating a very strange abandoned home inside of a field. It kind of looks like level 94 of the back rooms. Like the title says, it's just a house with no windows. Also, how'd they even find this house? There's no roads leading to it. Since there are no doors or windows or any entrance into the house, the man looks around the perimeter till he eventually finds a crawl space to enter from the bottom. The crawl space is covered by a piece of plywood, and for some reason, the cameraman is crazy enough to go inside. After crawling around to the back corner under the house, a hatch is located that leads directly inside of this house. Again, the cameraman has no fear, so he just goes up and jumps right in this strange house. The first thing we see when you're inside the house is that it smells like burnt matches, which is an interesting description of a smell to say the least. After turning a corner, we see that there are tables and chairs that defy gravity. We also see looks down hallways that make the house look a lot bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. From that outside perspective, it didn't seem very big. Then we see this cartoonishly tall doorway at the very end of the hall, which is probably for these giant creatures to walk through. But after the cameraman looks at the doorway hallways for just a second, an entity pops around and peeks its head from the doorway. Then it ducks back into the shadows before we can get a good look at it. Naturally, the cameraman didn't even react. The cameraman then goes down another hallway and discovers more doors and more rooms that again make the inside look much bigger than it was on the outside. This specific set of doors kind of looks like the doors from the hallway earlier. It's two glass pane doors from an inside perspective. I'm not saying it's the same doorway, but it definitely is similar. Once the cameraman walks in this room, he finds a wall print that says, "Be still and know that I am God," which is a partial Bible verse from Psalm 46:10. Inside the house, there are other religious artifacts like crosses on the wall and things like that too, tying in a religious aspect to the series. After leaving that small room, again the cameraman notices more hallways, more offshoots, and apparently a bigger labyrinth network than he could have dreamed. There's also a set of stairs that goes nowhere. And at the top of those stairs is a cross, symbolizing that there is no way to heaven. Opposite of that, there is a hallway that leads into oppressive darkness, and since these two look like dead ends, the cameraman turns around and goes the other way. He then locates a door that is probably over 10 foot off the ground, and then the footage cuts to what looks like a security feed or something like that, with red text that pops up instead of the usual white that says, "What are you? I know your face." This text likely comes from the point of view of the entity that lives in the house. Now, let's break all this down just for a second. This monster that is inside of the house with no windows is not the jester-faced creature that we saw previously. This is the same one from episode 1 and 2 of the series. So I posit the theory that what if this monster that was in the episode titled My New Friend, what if this was stalking that kid that was the original cameraman, and now the cameraman has grown up and he was the one or she was the one investigating the house, and this cameraman broke into this creature's house and they didn't even recognize the kid. Maybe the creature doesn't understand time or how things change or how people grow up. It's kind of a role reversal. Like originally the monster was in the kid's room and now the kid that had grown up is in the monster's house. And from the looks of the footage, the creature looked more terrified of the human than the human was of the creature, which I find that pretty cool. That trope should probably be explained and exemplified more. But I think that the reason the entity responded, "I know your face," is because it remembered the kid from when it became friends with him or her a long time ago in that initial episode. Again, it's important to note that this entity did not attack the cameraman. It held itself back and kind of looked from the shadows. But now at this point, we've reached the final episode in the series, and I'll go over that now before I tie everything together. The episode is called "Why Do You Keep Us Here?" And it begins with a graveyard scene and text that says, "She's in here somewhere." The footage then goes to find Abby's bed from part 3 of the series, but instead of Abby being in the bed, it's over top of her grave, and a caterpillar is inside of it. Looking at the shadow on top of Abby's crib, we can see that the person or being kind of viewing the grave is the jester-faced creature. We can see his spikes. So we know it's the jester visiting Abby's grave, and then the video cuts to black, and the text, "You're not how I remember you, Abby," pops up. Again, kind of reinforcing that idea that the previous episode had, where these beings, whatever they are, they don't recognize or understand time, changes, or growth. They can't differentiate that people can change when they age, or that things can change, or that their actions have consequences. The footage then goes back to Abby's room, and a view from the outside of her window can be seen that says, "Why do you keep me here?" We then see the jester again, and the cameraman is now retreating back down the windowless hallway to his room. He chucks the door with the chair yet again, and he's trying to sleep, but all the while, the knob and the door are shaking violently while the creature from the other side moans and cries, trying to get inside the room. Text then pops up that says, "Please forgive me." After this, the screen fades to a stark black. Now that is a lot to unpack, so we're gonna hop into the section where I kind of string it all together in a way that makes sense and explain what I think is happening, because I'm never wrong. I do not think these creatures are the same type of being, and they're certainly not the exact same creature. Obviously, one looks like a jester, and one looks just like a kind of a creepy monster. But I do think they behave similarly in the fact that they're both parasitic hosts that latch themselves onto people. In the first episode, the My New Friend episode, we see that this entity is kind of looking and watching and examining the person with the camera, who I think is a child, given the toys on their floor and the naivety to approach the creature. And I think the series then follows that person as they had eventually grown up and maybe even had a kid of their own, Abby in this case, and that might have caused the entity to lose lose its connection with the original host, my new friend. And now in order to gain that connection back, it tries to latch on to that person's child, and it ends up killing her by doing that. And I'm also positing that the death of Abby was an accident, and that is why the jester-faced creature has so much remorse, so much angst for doing what he did. That's why he visited the grave of Abby. Now, I still don't know why they would kill Abby. I don't know how they would, but I think that's as good a theory as any. Now, after Abby is dead, the cameraman seems to be trapped inside of his own house, and that's why the video's, titled "Why Won't You Let Me Leave?" or the text pops up that says that. He's so scared of what the creature is capable of that he tries to lock himself in his own room and leave his own daughter outside to get away from it. Maybe these two beings are parents themselves. Maybe they take children away from bad parents. Maybe the cameraman was being neglectful or unworthy, and these beings stop that. Going back to the footage where they found the house with no windows, we can see that directly next to the house is some sort of obelisk. It almost looks like the Washington Monument. And that is the only time we actually see the namesake of this series. The series is titled The Obelisk. We only see it once, and it's right by that house. What does that mean? Probably means that the base or the home camp of these strange, ethereal, horrible beings are here, and they get their power maybe from the obelisk, or maybe they're charged by it. I saw one theory that says that the cameraman's daughter is Abby, and maybe she got killed in a home invasion, and now the cameraman is reliving that moment through a nightmare fuel-induced dream like this. Another theory is that the jester and the other monster are also parents, and they stole Abby to raise on their own. Maybe the original parents of Abby got Abby killed somehow by accident or on purpose, and now this is what they're facing because of it, kind of like retribution. When the jester visited Abby's grave, the imagery is clear. It saw her as a caterpillar in a crib. And what is a caterpillar? It's a bug, but it also is an unblossomed butterfly, right? Abby didn't have the chance to grow into the person that she was gonna be, so she's stuck in that same state of being a caterpillar. Time didn't change for Abby, so these beings are punishing the parent for it. Maybe, I don't know. On the surface, these beings do not appear outright aggressive. They haven't really attacked or jumped forward to kill people except in one episode, and they seem very curious, almost nurturing and caring. Whether it's good that they're curious and invested or it's bad, that's up for you to decide. But my overall theory is that this series is revolving around childhood trauma and maybe the death of innocence, this decaying aspect of your naivety. We grow up in life and our parents tell us that there's monsters out there in the real world, there's horrible people, but what if the monsters were your parents? And in this case, the monsters that are in the closet might be the only good guys keeping you there. I could be way off, I have no idea. It's impossible to know what is truly happening in this series because it's still brand new. There's only 5 episodes out so far, but there is more coming according to the community post on his channel. So all I can do is theorize with things like I just said, and hopefully some of them stick and make sense. If not, it was still fun to research into. But I do want to know your theories down below in the comments section below. Make sure you let me know so I can kind of reply to them, see if I missed anything, see if you saw something that I didn't. I think it's gonna be pretty cool. Check them out. But if you want to support me here on the Brugly channel, you can subscribe, it's free. You can leave a like, it's free. And if you want more content from me, you can check out my Spoogly channel and my Toogly channel and my Instagram. So I'm all around on these places. If you want more content, just check all that stuff out. Thank you so much for everything you do. I love and appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.